I am thrilled to have Natalie as our guest today. She is a tech enthusiast and entrepreneur with a strong social media presence, boasting over 100,000 followers on TikTok. Through her accounts, she provides honest reviews of technology, including AI, as well as practical use cases for business owners and creators. Natalie has a wealth of knowledge in business automation, marketing, cool no-code tech, and AI tools. Everyone, please help me welcome Natalie. Hi, Nat. How are you today?
Very good, Kevin. How are you going?
Good. Some technical difficulties at the
Yeah.
beginning, but we got there.
Just constantly frozen in smile face.
Hopefully that'll all sort itself out later. Hey Nat, I appreciate you taking the time for this. I've been following your journey for maybe over the past year, and your content is so good. So that's why I wanted to connect with you, and hopefully you can share some golden nuggets to the audience.
Do my best.
And let's begin with your story. How did you get into business automation and TikTok marketing?
So I started with business automation, not because I was intending to, but out of necessity, because I had a tea business that I was running, and after having kids, it was really hard to run the business by myself. It was like just a one woman show. And I found that lack of time and all that sort of led me to automating the business so that I could spend more time with my baby. And initially I was doing like, I don't know, 7 to 8 hours a day, like just cold calling and researching businesses to call up and then saying basically the same thing and in the script and then following up. Like it sounds okay, but like in terms of following up and making sure like you've got a record of who has answered your emails and all that, it's very time consuming. So that sort of led me to installing as like HubSpot, where it automates a lot of the manual work for you in terms of email sequences and like email tracking and all that. So that kind of led me to also Facebook ads to draw in the leads and then connecting that up through Zapier and then automating that whole process. And I found that it actually converted better for me because everything was automated and none of the leads were left behind. So a lot of times due to like human error and like me forgetting or not responding in time led to me not making the sales. Whereas with the automations, like it's basically set and forget kind of thing. And so that's why I thought it was quite interesting because I never have thought about it in this way where I could automate things. And so I started automating a lot of other things in the business. And then I started talking about it on TikTok because I annoy the crap out of my friends and family. I love talking about business and marketing and all that stuff. And I think I put someone to sleep before because that's all I want to talk about. So when TikTok came around, I finally decided to go on it and start talking about or sharing ideas and sharing the things that I did in my business so that other people could learn, because these are all the things that I wish I knew when starting a business that no one told me, and being honest and truthful about what it's actually running a business. And that's how I got into TikTok as well, sharing ideas.
Your TikTok videos are very informative. You always introduce like new tools and systems or processes that like I haven't come across or other people haven't come across. So they're very valuable in that. But they're also entertaining as well. I find you really easy to watch and you don't take yourself too seriously, which is great. And I think that unique combination provides a lot of value and it gets a lot of views, obviously. You blew up on TikTok from what I could see. And what a world to live in at the moment, like with all the automation stuff that is available. It's pretty crazy how, like you said, one woman show, got kids, automation, and there's so much you can automate now. It's pretty crazy.
That's right. Like these sort of tools, I didn't even realize you could utilize in a business. And nowadays it's so much easier to start a business from scratch and do it like at home or offline, especially with everyone like adopting AI tools and all these really no-code tools that anybody could use with no developer or coding experience at all. So it's so easy now.
Like HubSpot's been around for a while, Zapier's been around for a while, but I think still a lot of people aren't leveraging these tools, especially in Australia, possibly. And you probably know more,
Yeah,
or, like your demographic.
That's right. I've spoken to a lot of business owners and they're like, I really want to use Zapier, and they know about these tools, but it's just they don't know how it actually works or what it can actually do. And I guess, in my opinion, it's quite easy to connect these things together, but it's just business owners probably just don't have enough time to be able to do this, especially like on top of running their actual business and doing what they're actually good at. Definitely, like, a lot of people know about these tools. It's just they don't know how to use it.
And that's where you come in, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to make it easier for people to like adopt these tools, because from my point of view, when I was trying to learn these things, it wasn't like I was trying to solve a problem, but the tutorials and how these tools are shown in the tutorials doesn't show what I can actually implement in my own business. I had to actually like go and customize things so that it matched up what I needed to do. So for example, I was using HubSpot, and I love HubSpot. Like, it's such an intuitive marketing tool and absolutely love it. However, like, I believe it went from $70 a month to $700 a month or something like that. And I was like, it's, for me, if I was a bigger business or a medium to large business, it totally makes sense. I'd totally pay that. But as a small business, I couldn't afford that. So then I went and did some adjustments, like using ActiveCampaign and Zapier, and also using HubSpot CRM. But I connected all those things together to create the same sort of tool that I was using HubSpot for. And that in total cost me about $40 a month. So like, using these tools to connect each other up. And I think it's more of like my engineering degree coming into this, where I'm like just tinkering with stuff to make things work for me. But it's just finding like creative ways to connect things together to make it work for you. And every business is different, the way that you operate. So I want to create, I guess, a use case for businesses so that they can actually find a practical use for their business using these tools.
And you do it so well. I think a lot of these tools that you do, you have the consideration of budget in mind as well. It's not like you're trying to get everyone to jump on these paid subscribed apps that cost like huge amounts of money. I think it's geared a lot towards the small business owners who are looking to experiment and grow their business without having to put out a huge investment.
That's right. I think that with a lot of the tools, there's tools for different cases, like different businesses, right? And so a small business would use different tools to, say, a medium to large business. And of course, previously, when I was running a small business, I was like, at the very beginning, I didn't want to spend any money at all on any tools. I was like, I can do it myself, and I want to make it as cheap as possible, for free, all that stuff. But what I realized was, when you're running it yourself, and especially with limited resources, thinking about it in terms of getting for free or like paying the minimum amount isn't necessarily the right way to look at things. Because, say, for example, I use repurpose.io, which is like a automation tool that takes out the watermark from TikTok videos. Every time I post a TikTok video, it will distribute across 6 other platforms. And so that's one of my favorite tools for social media, because I don't have to pay someone to do all this for me. Usually, like, if this was a couple of years ago, I would have had to pay a social media person or like an admin person to take my TikTok videos, export it out, and then repost it onto all these other platforms manually. And so for me to pay someone $25 an hour to do this versus paying a $25 fee, a subscription each month, like, it's totally worth it. And so when I think about time versus value versus the money spent and what it can actually do, because leveraging your video, your one-time video, to go across so many different platforms is totally worth it. So I try to incorporate all those aspects when I'm considering tech tools and software as well.
Great point there. And I want to put a pin in that for a moment, because I want to come back to that in terms of distributing one video among many platforms. And I know that you've been experimenting in that area as well. So I'll come back to that. But I just want to recircle back to one point that you mentioned earlier. You said you're an engineering background?
I did chemical engineering, which I didn't pursue that because I had a scholarship and I worked for 4 different engineering companies. And so I thought I would be an engineer after I came out of uni, but obviously I didn't. I think that the projects that I did were a bit too slow paced for me. Like, I was after something a bit more quicker. I was working for companies like paint companies and all that. And so it was watching paint dry wasn't really my thing. So I went, like, my first job out was in an investment firm where we were acquiring businesses and managing and selling some businesses. And then I went into like a venture capital area where we were starting up businesses, and I found that quite interesting. I think starting businesses is really exciting, and you're building things from scratch. And so I think it did incorporate a little bit of engineering from problem solving end, but maybe I'm stretching it a bit too far. But I definitely do find business and marketing and all this stuff a lot more fascinating.
I can empathize. My background's mech
Oh,
engineering,
really? Cool.
chemical. So I studied at UTS,
Oh,
and then
nice.
I didn't really stick with the field either. I ended up expanding to business. So I get it. I get it.
Really cool.
So I want to go back to your social media, TikTok platform. And that's when I first came across your platform, because I was thinking, oh, everyone's talking about TikTok. Let's go check it out. Let's create an account. And then because I never really used TikTok, I was getting all these random videos, really random videos. And they say, oh, no, you've got to like the videos in the field
Yes.
that you're interested in. And then they will start popping up. And I'm like, oh, that's why. So I was just getting these random like girls and people dancing and all these things. I'm like, what the hell's going on? No wonder it's like TikTok is trash. But no, but then once you go down certain rabbit holes, you're like, okay, what's like I have an interest in business. I look at business and AI and tools and all these things. And then your feed came. I was like, hey, she's got some really good feeds. And then I noticed how like obviously your following has blown up on TikTok. And my question for you is, was there a pivotal moment for you when your social media started blowing up? Was there a certain shift in content that you decided to make, or it got shared somewhere, or whatever it may be, that it just hockey sticked after that?
I wouldn't say my TikTok has blown up so much, but there was a moment where I went from like 100 or so followers to 10,000 because I did one video and it was about how I stole a competitor's database. And that got a lot of views and a lot of controversy because people were like, oh my God, like how could you steal someone's database? And the funny thing is I didn't technically do that, but it was just the way that I like positioned the heading, or that made people go, oh my God, that's such a shocking thing that you could do. Because actually I did a video before that about this exact same tool, but I just said that, hey, you can look at the website's previous pages, even if they took it down, which didn't get many views, but like the one that I did after that, exactly the same tool, but it's just that I said that I stole someone's database, that it blew up, and I got a lot of haters, but I also got a lot of followers from that. And so that's when I built that audience that, you know, supported me throughout even till now, and gave me the momentum to keep doing those videos, because I was doing like the videos for a while and getting nowhere kind of thing. No one was really seeing it, but it wasn't until that point that started to go from there.
That is a very catchy title. And I did watch that video, by the way. I just do competitive stuff. Because it's interesting, right? Because it's also useful. They might go, oh, it's unethical or whatever, but it's important to see where they're at. Like, first of all, it's important to do research on your competitors, right? And then secondly, after that, is to see how are they doing in terms of building their audience, or how they're building their database, or how they're building their consumers. Because retargeting ads is essentially a similar space. A lot of people on Facebook ads look for their competitors' ads and then retarget their customer base. So
exactly. Like it was back in the day when I was doing cold calling, and I was like, Googling stores to like cold call, but then I found it easier just to have a look at my competitors' stockist list and contacting all their guys. And I don't know, people might call it unethical or whatever, but I'm pretty sure like people do this in the industry. But coming like that was my first serious business, and no one told me about these things that you could do like in business, or how it worked in the industry. And so I had to like basically learn everything myself. And like at the time I didn't have many friends that were business owners either. And I don't know, I wish I would have had all these insider tips and tricks that I could have adopted, because that would have like really sped up my learning curve. In saying that, like I did follow a lot of business people, but I was led down like a lot of rabbit holes because I was told, oh, this is the next best thing, or this is going to make you millions of dollars. But it was really in the interest of that particular person or the gurus. And so I wanted to be more honest in the way that I like give out tips and tricks, because not every advice is for everyone. And I want to try to say, hey, if you're in this position, you should do this, but not this.
Right,
Just to help
right.
people, guide people in the right direction.
I think your tips are very actionable and they're simple enough to follow as well. And your videos aren't like super long. So it's easy for people to just go, okay, got a few minutes. What's Nat up to? What's she sharing now? And there's always different things you can take from it. But they are great insights from someone who's obviously tested it before. And it's like a shortcut or a hack almost that people can go, oh, you can do things smarter that way.
That's right. I think that especially on TikTok, you want to share short, actionable tips and tricks that people can actually do. Whereas I've started on YouTube where I want to go into more detail about how to actually use these tools and softwares, because a lot of my followers are like, how do you actually implement it? So it's great to show people what these tools can do, but actually like implementing it is another story as well.
Let's get into that actually. So I see that you're expanding across different platforms. First, I saw you on TikTok, and then I saw that you created an Instagram account, and then now YouTube as well. Can you share your experience with trying to grow an audience on other platforms? And we can even circulate back to repurpose.io, how you're initially using one video to distribute against many platforms. Like guys like Gary Vee or people are always talking about, you got to post natively upon that platform, just share one thing across all the platforms. But as hearsay, I just want to hear from your perspective. How are you finding that?
So I follow Gary Vee as well, and I love him. And that was my whole, like when he said start on TikTok and all that sort of pushed me as well. But I guess TikTok was my stepping stone to being on other platforms, because if I didn't start on TikTok, I couldn't have posted on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube at the right time. Like if you met me like a year and a bit ago, like I'm like normally really shy, but with TikTok, the video platform made it super easy for people to just pick up the phone and start recording. And if there's any errors, like you can just let go of the button and it will stop recording. So that made it super easy. And also the beauty filters on there are amazing. But like that, and also the actual content on TikTok, I found quite different to Instagram and Facebook and all that, because it was very raw and very unedited videos where people were telling the truth and honest, being super honest, compared to Instagram where everything's picture perfect. You got to be like, pretend everything's all great and stuff, which I wasn't really into. And so even though I did do Instagram for my tea business, it took a lot of time because you had to make everything look nice. But on TikTok, I found that when I started doing Brand Nat, talking about my business tips and stuff, and being super honest in that point, in that context, I gained a lot of true audiences that followed me because I was being genuine, and that's why they wanted to follow me. And it was much easier for me to create content on there because I was being myself. It's also very liberating to not pretend. I think that TikTok has also trained us to become better marketers, because you have to create content that grabs attention immediately. And a lot of the times I found that if you try and sell something on TikTok, people just swipe. So you have to become clever about how you position your content so that it doesn't come across as salesy, but also actually giving value to your audience without expecting anything in return. So when I started to do these videos and I pushed it out to all these other platforms, in particular Facebook Reels, I think I grew like 10,000 followers in 1 to 2 months, because I just repurposed my old TikTok videos onto Facebook. And at the time, I was at the right place at the right time when Facebook was really pushing these videos out, because I think if I did it a month earlier or even 2 or 3 months earlier, it wouldn't have gained much traction. But it was just in these 1 to 2 months that it really pushed out. And for example, like I pushed out some videos on TikTok that only got 3,000 to 4,000 views on it. But when I pushed it out onto Facebook, it went to 700,000 views, which was crazy. Like some of the things that I didn't get many views on TikTok blew up on Facebook. And it was quite interesting because I gained more qualified leads and clients off Facebook than I did from TikTok, which is really interesting. But I think that if I didn't do TikTok, I wouldn't have been able to grow on Facebook either. So it was my stepping stone. However, for 2023, I want to be focusing more on YouTube for longer form content, because I think that there's a lot more leverage I could take advantage of on YouTube in terms of being able to create a long form content and slicing that up and putting it onto TikTok, which gives me more leverage, as well as creating content on YouTube for monetizing on ads and potential sponsorships and all that.
I think that's a great way to go for yourself. And I can see and appreciate how you've used one platform to build an audience, and then you're using that as a stepping stone to then use this, like essentially the same content to then leverage into other platforms and grow that as well.
I think,
and
sorry, I remember your question about how Gary Vee said to create native content for each platform. I agree with this, because obviously if you create native content, and I wish I could, but he's obviously got a team to do that for him. And if I had the team and the time to do this, I definitely would. However, I'm currently still a one-man band for BrandNat. And until I build out a team, fastest way and the best use of my time currently is to just repurpose it out, because it doesn't hurt to use that same content and repost it out, because if you don't do this, the other alternative is to do nothing at all. And so I think that's a better option. And the thing is, I would rather focus on one platform and get really good at it before I actually move on to another platform. Because if you're spreading your focus out onto so many different platforms, you could potentially get nowhere and spend all this effort and time to have it wasted. So that's why I focused on TikTok first, because I found that it was everything currently that is a trend on TikTok eventually goes out to other platforms a couple days later or 1 or 2 weeks later onto Instagram or Facebook. So TikTok, if you go to the initial source, which is TikTok, then you'll find it a lot easier to push this out to other platforms because you're first.
Yes. And since we're on the topic of TikTok, with your experience, and I know you shared a few points for the audience already in terms of creating shorter videos, but valuable and not asking for anything in return, like don't try to sell, these kind of things. Are there any other tips that you would like to share or could share for the audience in terms of creating some sort of success or engagement for the audience? So
what I tell with my clients when they come to me for TikTok marketing and creating content is your intention behind your video. So always, when you create a video, always think about who your target audience is and what they would view as valuable, even if it means you're not selling your actual product or putting your product in their face. Like, for example, when I was selling tea, I didn't always sell, here's my tea, buy it kind of thing. This is the marketing that you do on Facebook and Instagram, which is totally different. On TikTok, I did videos like, this is how you use this tea to, if you've got bloating or if you're trying to find a coffee alternative, this is a solution for you. And sometimes you don't even need to mention the name. Like, people will naturally be like, what is it? Or say, for example, these are the top 3 tips on how you can reduce your cold and flu symptoms. And you give really good advice, but you can incorporate your products in there, but you don't need to mention this is the name of my business or have your logos everywhere. And so I think that when businesses go on TikTok, that's how they view TikTok as a marketing platform, but it's more of a entertaining where people go on to look at short clips and entertain themselves or fun or all that stuff. So that's how I approach TikTok, and giving wholeheartedly without expecting anything in return. Because at sometimes I'd be like, I need to meet these sales targets or whatever it is. And when you create content in that sort of intention, people can feel it. And I've seen it on my own accounts where I'm like, I need to push this. And I get crickets when that happens, and I can see it in terms of the views, the engagement. But then when I immediately switched to just giving out genuine content that actually helped me, that really boosted my views and engagement. The other tip I have that has worked for my e-commerce and other brands is looking at the top performing posts. So in your niche. So you would go on the search bar in TikTok and looking at, say your niche is in kitchen products or kitchen tools. Look that up in your niche and then have a look at the top performing or top liked videos in the last month or so. and have a look at all the videos that are top, that got the most likes, the most engagement, and have a look at their structure in their videos, how they created the videos. It might have been things like, here are the top 3 hacks that you could implement straight away, or what the things I would do that I wouldn't do as a interior designer or something like that. So looking at the structure and the way that they create the videos, you can replicate this on your own videos and then see how that goes. Because quite often when I've done this, because it's trending and TikTok likes to push these kind of trending videos, that'll get you and at least put you on the map to when you get started.
That was a great one. I watched and followed your advice on that one. I'm also in the coffee industry, and so I was looking up coffee, and then there were all these ASMR / like video coffee videos, and it was really nice tunes and just people making coffee, and that was really cool. I thought, I could leverage that. I could do something similar to that. So I proposed it to the team. I was like, hey guys, what do you think about making some ASMR videos with coffee? And they're like, oh, okay, we'll see how we go. And I'm still waiting to know.
Definitely ASMR. I didn't get it at first. And I was like, that's what it is. Definitely people are into that.
Let's get into more meatier tools for business automation. Or we spoke about HubSpot earlier, Zapier, a bit of repurpose.io. Do you have any other favorite automation tools that you like to use or recommend?
One of the most used, the one that I do, because I do a lot of like online meetings and stuff, is TLDB, which is, it records your video and it transcribes it. So currently, I don't think there's any other app that does this for Zoom and Google Meets, which I use. So it's quite handy because like sometimes I take down lots of notes, but I found that when I use this app, I don't have to take down any notes. I can just go back to it and copy and paste the transcription, which makes it a lot easier. And I think that my clients and people that I talk to on these calls also appreciate it as well, because they don't have to take any notes. So it definitely saves a lot of time, and it's a very simple tool, but definitely a really good time saver there. And I'm into all that time saving stuff. Yes.
It's pretty crazy where AI is moving at the moment. Like with a lot of similar tools that have been released open source in terms of summarizing videos, like summarizing your YouTube video or podcast, or like the one that you recommended was to transcribe like your meetings. But now the tools that I was showing, like for example, by assembly.ai, you can just copy and paste a YouTube or a podcast link or whatever. And it just, not only does it transcribe, but then you can also get like chapter summaries or like headline topics or sentiment analysis and all these things. And it's pretty crazy, but it's cool.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to see what they come up with next, because all these tools are like things that you had to do manually and takes up so much time. But like, it's pretty crazy the type of tools they're coming out with, like the Synthesia, where you can like create a video, a talking person or avatar that you can script out the whole thing for them and they'll say everything you want them to say. So you don't actually need to be on camera to do training videos and all that. And now with like DALL-E, where you can write a text and it'll create an image or a picture of exactly what you wrote in the text, is pretty amazing. So, and I see that in this particular industry, a lot of existing softwares utilizing things like copywriting AI in, say, for example, Klaviyo. They're using like an email software. They're using things like that copywriting tool where you can generate headings, like email headings, subheadings and stuff like that for you as well. So pretty exciting.
I'm also quite active in that space in terms of research. And there's this other thing that came out recently by OpenAI as well. It's called ChatGPT. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. What's that?
ChatGPT. So it's like so a lot of these copywriting based apps were all based off GPT-3, right? Which is and so ChatGPT is like the next version that they're releasing. It's like almost GPT-4 in a sense. And it's talking about no code that you mentioned earlier. You could technically tell them to write me an app about this, that includes this and that. And it will just, and write it in Python or Java or whatever. And it will just list it all out for you.
Yes.
and complete it. And so,
I've seen a lot of those app creating tools, like app builders and stuff like that. And it's pretty crazy. Like I know that one of my friends was trying to build an app, and I think they paid like 40 grand, like for software developers to create an app. But like now you can just create one by yourself, like just drag and drop, and don't even need technical skills. So it's pretty crazy.
because apps were so hot before, right? And then everybody wanted to build an app. But if you're not a developer, you're just paying ungodly amounts of money, because any adjustment that you need or anything that you need to change, if you can't do it and you have to pay someone else to do it, it's just an endless money
Yeah,
pit.
that's right. It's
So
good news
at
for
least,
business
yeah.
people and stuff.
And do you have any foresight or anything that you see will happen in the next 3 or so years in that space? I know that's a long time in that space, but do you have any foresight?
I think that basically a lot of softwares, as I mentioned before, are adopting these tools like AI into their softwares. But I think that like basically every new app or new software that's coming out already has existing AI built into it. So like a lot of social media tools all have copywriting. You can generate social media posts off an image. They'll like just scan your whole website for like information and then put it in. I think that a lot of businesses and non-technical people will be able to adopt these AI tools to be able to leverage. And I like to think of it as like a AI as a car. Like people were previously walking to a destination, but now with you can just drive there kind of thing. And I know that a lot of people, like a lot of freelancers were worried about, oh, I'm going to lose my job, or people won't need copywriters anymore and stuff like that. But I view this as more of a vehicle or a tool that copywriters or freelancers can use to be able to do things faster without so much of the manual work that's needed and the low sort of labor that needs to. I guess you can do higher leveraged work using AI because humans know how to think and problem solve better, well, currently compared to AI. But I do see AI doing a lot more problem solving in the future. But like, I think that see this as more of a really cool way of using the tool to get your work done faster and be able to do more in your business.
I agree. I think it is essentially a co-pilot in the sense that will help you get things done faster, more leverage in the actions that you make. It's exciting. It's going so fast. It's the news that's coming out every day. Things are just exponentially jumping. So I'm curious to see how well it'll be implemented in everyone's everyday lives later on. But we'll see how we go.
Absolutely.
Where do you keep up to date with all the latest and greatest in your field?
I don't. I mainly consume TikTok content where I get like a lot of information like really quickly, and that's how I like to digest things. However, I will suggest one newsletter that I love, and that's called The Hustle. I don't know if you have this, but I think it was acquired by HubSpot recently, but their newsletter is just jam-packed with so much really good bite-sized information about business, tech, entrepreneurial stuff. And I find a lot of value in that particular newsletter. And it's interesting as well, the way they write the content. And it's really short, so you don't have to read a whole bunch of like news to keep up. So I definitely recommend The Hustle if you want to sign up to that one.
I listen to their podcasts.
Oh, okay.
I think they're pretty entertaining.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So you're already up to date.
If you're interested, and if the audience is interested in the AI tools as well, one newsletter that I'm following at the moment that I find a lot of value from is called Ben's Bites.
Ben's Bites.
And he, basically a no-code background, just creates his newsletters all AI based, but it's blown up ever since he's started because they're short point, but it's because there's so much happening in space that you cannot keep up. And at least with a newsletter, he can condense all these tools and all the research into these really nice short line sentences. And if you like any of them, just click in and do your own reading and learning for that product or service. So that's one that I would recommend.
Cool. I'll look him up. Oh, actually, I do remember there's a guy on TikTok. I think his name is Maker Max, and he does a lot of these really cool. He also uses no-code tools, but he builds a lot of things using no-code tools that have really good use cases. I really like his content, so definitely check him out if you're on TikTok.
Great. I'll have to check it out. Maker Max. All right. I feel like I may have touched on this a few times, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And if you've got something, go for it. What's your favorite productivity hack for entrepreneurs?
I don't know if I'd call this a productivity hack, but it sounds really simple, but really hard to do, especially for a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, because, okay, being super ruthless and clear on the 1 to 3 big goals in life that you want to achieve. And it's, again, very simple, but being an entrepreneur, and I found this a lot with like when I talk to other business owners, they tend to, like, and myself included, want to do so many different things when new opportunities come around, and then you end up like going around in circles because, you know, you want to start all these things sound really good, but being super clear on what you want and just ignoring everything else, because everything else is just a distraction. When you're being clear on the goals, that if a certain task or a certain opportunity comes around that doesn't suit your goals, it's best to just leave it, because you need to chase that big goal and do everything you can to do that. So a lot of times I find that I'm doing a lot of things. I'm spending a lot of time doing the work, but then I'm not moving the needle towards that actual goal. So that's what I've learned in terms of productivity.
That's great advice, Nat. And to push on that a little bit further, how do you keep yourself in check in terms of the actions you do to keep the needle moving forward?
I guess having a schedule. I've actually bought a diary for 2023, because I want to like really focus on this, and just writing down 2 to 3 things that you need to focus on every single day, because I tended to just keep adding a lot of tasks on my list. And like, even if I tick them off, a lot of the times when I look back, I'm like, actually, I did all these things, but it wasn't really impacting anything that I really wanted to do. It was just like things that I ticked off. And while it's great to get a lot of tasks done, in life, it's not going to be the most effective. So
it's a great one. I think, like you said, just putting it down to 2 or 3 items that are the most important and focusing on that, rather than getting distracted and doing all these other things and turning back and not realizing that it hasn't actually contributed to the overall goal.
Like, it's super simple. Someone told me this last year, whatever, like this, like everyone has heard this tip before, and a lot of the advice that I have been given or find really useful are all the things I've actually heard of. But until you actually go through and realize that epiphany point, you're like, whatever, it's just like normal advice. But it really does work. The really simple stuff. So yes, don't discount the simple advice that people give you.
That's true. It's things that we've heard before, but do you actually do it though? Because if you don't, you can't actually have the opinion on it.
And I guess we're always chasing the next big hack or the big thing. Even if you pay like thousands of dollars, like what I've realized is the really simple things that you need to do. Like, no one can do it except for yourself. Like, even if you hire a coach for, I don't know, $5,000, which I did. And in the end, you realize that I already knew what I was supposed to do. I just had to do it. So
that's a good one. Nat, do you have a favorite failure, and what did you learn from that experience?
So my favorite failure is that when I was running my tea business, and for many years, I think up until the last year, I kept thinking that I had to do everything myself and I couldn't let go. So even the packing of the tea and delivering of the tea, I was like, I have to do this myself because no one can do it better than I can, packing tea. It's like, I don't know why I thought like that. It's pretty crazy. And I don't think I'm the only one that thinks this, because one of my friends who sold like really nice candles, the best ones, she was like also in the mentality of, I have to make the candles myself. And that's I think the issue with a lot of startups, especially in the handmade kind of industry. A lot of women are in this space, and I think they get stuck because they're trying to do everything. And again, like this has been said in the industry. A lot of people know this already, but I really didn't want to grow a team. Like, I didn't want to hire anybody because I thought it was more work than to train someone up, and like a lot of mistakes and all that stuff. But when I finally thought I was going to close down my business because I was like, it's getting out of hand and I can't fulfill these orders, my husband was like, this is like crazy. Like, why are you shutting down your business? Because I lost passion, because I was like, I hate packing tea. And he's like, why don't you just outsource this? So I eventually did, because the issue that I found was every time I did marketing or like ads and stuff and I got like lots of sales, I'd have to stop everything and then go and pack the orders. And then it was a very stop and start kind of thing, which it wasn't working. And I was really hating it because every time I'd get a sale, I'd be like, ah, damn it, I have to ship it out. When I finally hired someone, it was a big relief. Like someone could actually take care of the inventory and the packing. And these are all the things that I hated that were also very low value. Sorry, like, how do I say it? You could pay someone an hourly rate versus the value that I was giving in terms of doing the ads and marketing, which is a lot higher value add, which I should have been focusing on from the start. But because of that limiting belief that I had to do everything myself, that kept me from growing. When I approach things, as soon as I have the SOP or like the like manual written down, I can pass this on to someone else. And that's the mentality that I have now, like just to hire someone or like to outsource this as soon as possible when it makes sense, of course.
I agree with you with that, because a lot of people in the crafts space, like anything craft based, is you're an artist and it's your hard work putting things together and you just don't want anyone else to touch it because it's what you do is perfect.
Exactly. And it's really hard to scale like that. And it's hard because like the entrepreneurs or the startups behind it, I don't think they see it from that point of view. Like it's until you actually pass that realization of scaling, it's a bit hard to see in hindsight. Yeah.
And it's interesting, like you said, you're actually getting busier, but then that's the point where you wanted to close up. And then your husband is like, what are you doing? You're actually getting busier and now you want to close?
It's crazy. Like when you look back, it's what the hell?
Because it's like you said, you're getting busier, but you're also busier doing things that you don't like doing as well. Like you're not only doing the things that you're good at. And so because of that, I can understand that over time it just grates at you and then you feel like, nah, I just don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. The other thing I realized was it was funny because I actually did outsource stuff, but it wasn't the packing. I outsourced the marketing, which I spent lots of thousands of dollars on happily, thinking that they could get me the results. But it was funny because once I took over that part, I made more. And then it was just a really funny way that I was thinking, like marketing and sales, definitely something that business owners should be taking over as opposed to like the packing side of things or the fulfillment of the actual order.
Great. Okay. Nat, we're reaching towards the tail end of our recording. I normally ask a few questions to all our guests and you can run through them as quickly or as long as you like. Do you have any morning or evening routines?
Probably the wrong person to ask about this because I'm normally a night owl and I get my most productive work done at night. But on the other hand, what I will say is that when I had that morning routine, that really set the tone for the day, because I'd wake up early, 6:30 or 7, go for a run, and then it really cleared up my mind and made me feel like I achieved something for the day. And so when I'm clear, I'm more focused and I can do more things during the day because I've already got that one thing done. Whereas now currently, because I sleep late and I wake up late also, I like just walk into like chaos. And so I don't have my mind organized yet. I'm trying to get the kids ready and all that for school. And so I need to get back into that routine, but I also love that night routine as well. That's why I say I'm not the best person to ask about routines.
Okay. Do you have a favorite book you'd recommend?
So normally I only read books that are about business and self-help, but I will recommend one book, which is a fiction book that I've read the most times out of all the books I've read, and that's called The Alchemist. And The Alchemist, it's a story, but it's got so many life lessons, and I keep coming back to it because every single time I read it, I understand more about what it's trying to tell me in terms of morals and lessons in life. And a lot of lessons I apply to are in business as well. It's a very interesting book. I keep reading it every year because you get so much out of it. So definitely check that book out.
Great recommendation. It's often recommended, that one, The Alchemist.
I'm not surprised.
Are there any new beliefs or behaviors that have had a positive impact in your life in the recent years?
I think that this year I have learned one important lesson, and that is to spot opportunities and also the time wasters. When I was in corporate, I had the mentality, and this is the mentality that you have when you want to move up the ladder, is to say yes to everything, take on more tasks, get noticed by the big bosses and all that stuff. But in business and in life, I found that with successful people, they have really good focus on what they want, like the actual goal that they have. And this is what I was saying before, is that you need to be clear on your goals. And if something doesn't, like a new opportunity comes along and it doesn't match up with your goals, you can immediately recognize that and say no. So the problem that I had before was I said yes to everything. And everyone that came through, especially when I started Brand Nat, they were like, oh, I've got a really good business opportunity, or I want to partner with you on a new company, or stuff like that. And I'll be like, oh, this is really cool. I've never been approached in that way before. And so waste all this time researching and talking to people about new business opportunities. But in the end, it was really an opportunity for them. And I didn't see that coming into it because I was a bit naive in that sense. But now I'm like recognizing, is this actually something that I say yes to because it aligns with my goals or not? Because if it doesn't, then say no immediately and just cut it off there, because otherwise it's just a distraction and you're just going to spin your wheels again. And the same goes for things like sponsorships where people like trying to lowball you. I know now that the ones that lowball you are usually the ones that are time wasters that expect like the world from you as well. And so now I just say no. It's just a clear cut, and it just makes life a lot easier and you get to where you want to go a lot faster. I'm still learning, but something that I learned this year.
That reminds me of a video you put up. I think it was a website or something that kind of shares how much you should be earning from, or something like that.
I was like, oh, wow, really? Because I don't follow that one, but I would love to charge that. I might try that next time.
Maybe all in USD. Yeah. If you could only send one single line of SMS text to yourself 5 years ago, what would it be?
Be clear with my ikigai, which is being clear on, and ikigai means finding the cross point of your passions, what you're good at, and where people would actually pay you money for, and if there's demand for that particular skill that you have. And I didn't realize, I thought you only had to find one of them, but finding all four of those that cross path is your ikigai, and it just makes things a lot easier for you to follow that path if you can do all those four things. So being clear and finding that is probably something that I was told myself 5 years ago.
And finally, Nat, how could people reach out or learn more about everything that you do?
Probably at the moment, at Brand Nat on TikTok is probably the best place where I post out most content. However, later on, be sure to follow my YouTube channel at Brand Nat as well.
No worries. I will put everything in the show notes for people to follow. Otherwise, thank you so much, Nat. I really do appreciate your time. There's lots of golden nuggets here. I'm going to have to look through all of these and replay it a few times just to get all the nuggets that you have. And there's so much I could splice out of here for clips for people to look into. And I'll make sure to tag you and share it back to you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It was a pleasure to speak to you and your audience as well.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. All the links to the show notes will be available at kevinleesocial.com, spelled KEVINLY. Conversely, if you have any interviews that you'd love to recommend, please send it over to kevinleesocial@gmail.com. I'd love to connect. Thank you. Until the next episode.